Hello and welcome to the 60 for 30 project. My name is Xander Miller and I am sitting here with Koerri Elijah. Koerri, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, Xander. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's no problem. It's nice having you here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm just going to ask what neighborhood or what area you're from?
So I am originally, I'm a Northsider. I grew up a little bit north of Washington Bowl on 19th and 36, right over by the Grant Elementary School neighborhood there. Now I live in the downtown area, but I'm still a Northsider, at heart. So the North Side is, what I always represent for the most part. But I'm, a man of all of Kenosha. I've lived on all South Side, West Side, all over. So.
Okay, so you've been around the place, but North Side's your home.
Oh yeah.
And North Side's where you're from. All right.
Mm.
So, what have you seen as Kenosha's culture, or what is Kenosha's culture to you?
So I think that's a good question. So Kenosha's some people may combat this, but I think Kenosha is a fairly diverse place, right? So we have there's of course going to be like the strong Italian, strong German roots here, but especially over the past, I'd say at least 10, if not on upwards to 20 years, there's just been a lot more people kind of moving into the area, a lot more culture. So I'd say it's a mixed bag when it comes to like solidified culture. We're a city, so we have like a small city feel where like if you go to like Chicago or New York, there's tons of different cultures that are like in the same area but next to each other. We kind of have that feel to a certain extent, but then there's also like the core Kenosha aspects, like arts is a big thing, right? A lot of people are either like just into music or all different types of art, and then there's that aspect of the car culture, being like a motor city, not any longer, but there's the strong roots of AMC and Chrysler being here. So there's that aspect of it, right? And then there's the aspect of just being, a Wisconsinite, growing up living off Lake Michigan and stuff like that. So it's a unique place because like I said, it's pretty diverse, but small, big city type of feel, very artsy, I would say, would be the general culture.
Okay. And so those bits you've mentioned that there's like, part of the automobile, the arts, and that it's, generally diverse. How intermixed would you say all of that is with each other? Like, is it all kind of blends throughout, or is it all kind of separated into its own silos?
I'd say, I don't know, I'd say it's a mixture of both, like depending on where you are, especially if you're in like that uptown area where the AMC plant was, like there's the roots, the infrastructure of that until things that happen with the innovation neighborhood, I feel may help kind of push people to maybe change it a little bit. For right now, the infrastructure, how things are set up, even like with pubs and things like that, is all like that general like blue collar, plant worker type feel, like the middle America feel, right? But then on the like in the downtown area, it's a little bit more, you see more of like the arts there, right? A lot of the buildings will have murals and things of that nature on them. Just kind of the events and things that you see happen down there and like the open parks and stuff like that. You'll see all different types of things going on. You'll see congregations down there having church services. You'll see bands playing, all different types of things happening down there where people really come together to kind of show their artistic side. And then in the other areas of the city, it's kind of, more of, I'd say more neutral, more just general, housing areas for the most part, or shopping areas that you'll see standard all over the country.
So yeah, it's working out. It's like there, all of it's there, and maybe the innovation neighborhood, I believe, is the temporary name for it. I believe that might change a few things down the line.
Right.
Okay. And you've been throughout the city, so you've experienced all these different parts, right?
Mm.
Okay. How have all these different parts of Kenosha's culture affected you?
Mm. Well, I'd say it's helped, I mean, cultivate me into the person that I am today. Um, if Kenosha wasn't a diverse place, like I said, I think I probably would be a completely different person, you know? Just even the fact that the area that I grew up in, you could say is, some would say vastly different than some other areas, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in the city. And since you have, you know, well, I mean, I suppose it's like that everywhere, but how close in proximity things are in the city, with how different some areas can be. Like even like there's some areas where you could be walking on the same block and it might, you know, you'll be halfway down the block and you may feel like you're in a different neighborhood sometimes, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and you're on the same block. Um, so I feel like the city being like that helped me grow into the person that I am, because I had so many opportunities to be in so many different scenarios with so many different types of people, right? It's hard to kind of, unless you don't leave your block in Kenosha, it's hard to kind of really get pigeonholed into one type of group, you know? I have all different types of friends because I've been in such close proximity with so many different types of people, you know? And it's not just necessarily even a racial thing, it's all different types of backgrounds. You know, there's like a huge punk rock community. There's a, you know, hip hop scene here. There's an indie scene here. You know, people love, you know, we have like the country scene. You know, people that love going mudding, and you know, there's so many different types of people in the city. Um, I, I personally, I personally feel like I'm glad that I grew up here, because you get so many kind of different tastes, you know, and that's kind of a thing that I hear, especially, you know, a lot of people that come up from like the city. Over the past few years, a lot of people have moved into the area, and one thing that I hear generally from all different types of people, regardless of what their background may be, they come to Kenosha and they're like, oh man, this is different from where where I'm from, and it's all different types of places, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
although, you know, there's you would wish that there would be more togetherness or unity in some aspects, right? But the world's not perfect, so there's always going to be room for improvement. But what we do have, I mean, compared to what you see in a lot of areas, we do fairly well, you know.
So, hearing that, would you say Kenosha's in a generally good place then, in terms of like its community aspect and coming together?
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. I mean, that's why I still live here, you know. There's been places that I've been that I've contemplated moving to, and then after going and kind of experiencing, you know, the environment or the community and stuff there, I'm like, well, I don't know. It doesn't really seem, if it doesn't seem different enough in one aspect, and it also doesn't seem better in a lot of aspects, you know? And that's kind of why I've stuck around, because again, like you get so many different tastes of so many different, you know, backgrounds and cultures and so many different types of people. And then the proximity of Chicago and Milwaukee, it's easy to, you know, go to a bigger place if you'd like to, but then, you know, me, I'm a pretty low key type of person, you know, for the most part, unless
Mm-hmm.
I'm have something planned where I'm out in public, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, I think it works perfect. Honestly, like sometimes I guess the tight knitness and how much everyone knows each other is like honestly maybe one of the only cons that I have. I guess more recently, now that more people are familiar with me,
Mm-hmm.
because it's since we're so close and everyone kind of knows everyone, it's like it's sometimes hard to go places and not have people know who you are. And it's like that even with regular people. Everyone has a friend that knows someone, you know, or you could go to a random place and someone may be like, hey, aren't you so and so's friend? So um, yeah, I think I think the culture is good. I enjoy it. And I mean, maybe things will shift a little bit with the innovation neighborhood, but I try to look at the bright side, and I feel like if there are any changes, hopefully they will be the changes that will just make the community even better. It'll provide the few things that maybe I do think about, like that make me contemplate moving somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. So along with, the Kenosha Innovation Neighborhood and changes throughout the community, what changes would you like to see, or what changes do you think would improve the community here? So, you kind of think more about staying here, and just what changes would you like to see?
I think we're heading more in that direction. But for one, especially like people I'm a millennial, and I know, Gen Zers are coming up right behind me, and there's a lot of things that I look at as, being in that age group of now where I'm like at the point where it's pretty much about time for my generation to start taking the reins.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking around at the, the things that we have, and I'm like, there's things that we could have here that would make it more promising for my generation to want to stay and take the reins in the area and not move somewhere else where the infrastructure is already set up in a way that's, optimized for someone in my generation. But then also to have us remain here and make sure that the next generation that's coming up that's going to have to, take the reins after us is set up in a way where they can easily have the torch passed to them, right? So having infrastructure like jobs that, millennials and Gen Zers are looking at,
Okay.
Things of that nature, right? When it comes to that, people, some people in my generation have no issue working in factories, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not really something that I'm looking to do, right? And when it comes to work, especially in the digital space, most work is in the city, right? And one thing that I think everyone's learned after coming off of, the year and a half that we had, where so many people were doing remote work, was people shouldn't have to move across the country to work a lot of the jobs that they want to work, right? There's ways where you can have smaller hubs in areas that can help boost the economy in those smaller areas, but then also not congregate all of a certain demographic in certain areas, right? And I feel just as a country, as well as someone that is, in the position where he doesn't want to move across the country to do the job that he wants to do, if we could somehow have an infrastructure that could at least make it easier for me to do the work that I do where I am without having to travel all of the time, I think it'll really do wonders, man. So again, just like bringing in infrastructure, bringing in companies, or at least providing, access to startups or spaces where people can kind of come together and devise these plans and collaborate, right? Mm-hmm. Because with all of the art that we have here, with all of the community that we have here, we have places like this, right? We have facilities like this where people can come and they can use equipment and, learn how to move forward. But once you have these skills, you need to be able to utilize these skills, yep. Right? And that's the thing. We have to close the gap at being able to utilize the skills you have. I love working for myself, right? Mm-hmm. But not everyone doesn't like working for themselves, right? But these skills are the skills that are going to move everything forward. These are the skills that we need to get to the next level. So we need to focus in on these, but have the infrastructure for entrepreneurs as well as people that want to help grow companies.
So it sounds like part of what you're saying is not only is like the skills, the development of the skills, needed in growth and growing that in the community, but then places in the community that people can use those for work in this community rather than traveling outside the community to find work elsewhere outside of Kenosha. Is that right?
Right. Because we can't, if we're investing all of our resources and sending all of our talent outside of Kenosha, how does that benefit us, you know? Things will look good for a couple years, and like we're having some success, people are graduating, look how many people we got across the stage, right? But then 10 years goes by, and all of those people, maybe not even, maybe one of them are still in the community, and then we have to look at everything realistically as well. So many people go to college for certain degrees, and then they end up not using those degrees, right?
Yep.
So we have to keep that in consideration too. Like, we're putting people on tracks for jobs, but we need to just make sure we provide people with skills that they can use to do anything, right? So I'd like to see more of that, you know. Any kind of skill on, like, working anything online is a skill that you can utilize in any scenario, right?
Yeah.
If you know how to edit videos, you can be a mechanic and you can start your own mechanic business, record yourself, make videos online, upload it to YouTube, get an audience, and then all of a sudden you have people coming to you to repair, you know, because they like you online. Maybe they like your personality and they just want to work with you because they saw you online, or you really are providing like a very good resource to them, right? And that's just one example. Anyone can utilize these skills, right? So we just have to make sure that we zero in on that, provide that to the community, but then also make sure we have the spots for, you know, for those people to not leave us.
Is that where you could see the Kenosha Innovation neighborhood or center as a place where those could be created or those spots would be used?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, that's, as far as I know, that's how it's kind of being presented, right? And I mean, that's all, like, as long as things, and my thing is, again, it comes down to how the spaces are filled, right? Things can look nice and all of that, right? We want the aesthetic, of course, is an important aspect of everything, right? You don't want it to just have weird shapes and be like, but it's doing what it's supposed to do. It doesn't matter what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like, that does matter as well. But we have to make sure that, you know, results come from everything, because, you know, people are investing a lot of money. And then also, you know, people live in the neighborhood, right? And people have grown up in Kenosha. Like, I've lived here my entire life. I don't want to leave. I have children. I like for them to grow up here and not have to leave unless they want to, you know? And it would be nice to, you know, like, my family, you know, like, my grandmother is buried here. I'm always going to be connected to the community. So I want to, you know, always be able to, even if I at some point have to go, I always have to come back, you know, and to just see things thriving how I feel like, you know, we know they can, would be great, you know, so.
Okay. So with, you know, throughout the past year, through the pandemic, through unrest, through all that, I've heard, you know, resilience is one thing that I hear all the time, and where Kenosha is now. And we've talked about where Kenosha has been, where it's potentially going, what you'd like to see. But where do you see Kenosha is, like, right now? Like, what stage do you think Kenosha is at?
We are in a rebuilding phase. So, yeah, I guess that's the best way to say it. I'm trying to not use like a basketball analogy or anything like that.
Feel free.
I'm not even like a huge sports guy, but, like, you know, sitting at home for a long time, you kind of get into stuff, right? But yeah, I'd say we're in like the rebuilding phase, like a basketball team, where you have like the pieces, right? You might have, like, you had your draft pick or whatever, right? And we know what the future can be, right? And now we're just trying to make sure that we fill in the right pieces, you know, around the star, you know. A lot has gone on. We had a bad season or two, you know, you know, but the goal, you know, is still the goal, you know, and I can't speak for, you know, who makes all of the decisions in the community, but I imagine the goal is to make Kenosha a place where people feel, you know, safe. They feel like they're getting, you know, a fair shot at everything, and they feel like they can thrive here, you know. I feel like, you know, some of the nodes are, you know, we're pushing on them and they're starting to go down, but, you know, we don't have them locked in yet. Until they're all locked in, there's still still work to do, you know. Um, how the work gets done, you know, I don't know if I'm the person to be able to really explain that. Really, you know, what I try to do is, for one, just know what's going on as much as possible, be aware, you know, and then ask questions, you know, and then be vocal about things as well. You know, things happen in the community. I try to use my platform to the best of my ability to speak on things that I feel like should at least be highlighted. You know, I don't generally necessarily give my opinion too much on things, because when it comes to information, I feel like just allowing people to have information is the best thing, right? As an adult, I don't like people, like, you know, really being like, hey, you need to, like, I'm grown, I'm of sound mind. If I, you know, I won't say that because of everything that's going on. I was going to say if I needed a conservatorship, then they would, but it's not a good time to talk about that. Free Britney. Anyways, yeah, man, I just feel like as long as everybody continues to just keep hope alive, you know. I know it sounds recycled and used, you know, but I mean, that's the only thing you really can do, you know. Keep hope alive. Keep on speaking out if you can. If you know, like we've seen it over the past year. I mean, it's been happening for longer than that, but we've seen people continue to be vocal. People continue to show up and just let the community know what they want, you know. And we've been seeing a lot of, I'd say, in my opinion, concessions being made with the people in positions of power when it comes to, you know, the community being vocal for the most part. So we just need to continue that. Continue to work hand in hand with everyone. If you don't like something, speak out about it and let people know, and then we can, you know, make changes accordingly. But yeah, that's all we can do as an individual. Like I said, I try to just let people know what's going on, speak on things to the best of my ability, but just let people know, like, hey, at the end of the day, like, we all have to do our own part, you know? Like, I could say whatever I want to say every single day. That doesn't mean people are going to do it, right? So, I mean, just leading by example, having actions speak louder than words, and then also, you know, not letting it die out, you know. So.
Yeah, it's keeping that flame going. But for you, it sounds like that flame, that work is making sure people know, making sure people are informed in a way that's not usually, you know, not covered all the time.
Right.
So that sounds like it's a noble endeavor as a librarian. You know, information is kind of our thing. So it's very interesting. And you mentioned what concessions leaders are making in response to what people are saying, as people have been more vocal, or people have been, you know, making their voices heard. What would you like to say to leaders in the community about just what you would like to see for the city?
Whoa, that's a tough question. So, I mean, what I would like to see, I mean, I would like to see everyone have a fair, I mean, this is so cliche to say, but I'd love to see everyone have a fair shake at everything, you know? I'd love for the community to always truly represent the community and not just do it in a way that is, you know, there's a lot of time people kind of provide lip service, right? Because it's the right thing to do, right? Me personally, I would, if I'm not passionate about something, then I don't speak about it for the most part, you know. Or if I don't know something about something, then I don't speak on it, right? I'm not going to inject myself into a cause or a scenario that I know nothing about because it seems like it's the cool thing or the right thing to do, right? You know, it's a wild time that we live in where sound bites and clips and all of, like, you never know what you are truly supporting or what, you know, what all of the information is until it's all laid out in front of you, right?
Yeah.
So what I would like to see is people being more genuine, not just saying things because it's the time or it's the heat of the moment and it's, you know, what you're supposed to be doing, but it's because you actually genuinely care about it, you know? I want people to just be real. If you don't care about a subject, then don't pretend like you care. Like, it's okay, because when it comes to making change, you need genuine allies. When you're not dealing with genuine allies, things start slouching down, infighting starts happening, things become compromised, all different types of stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people just, if anything, I would like to see our leaders become more genuine. Not saying that they're disingenuous. I would just love to see people just be real.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me, Koerri, and thanks for letting your voice be heard here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Sandra. I appreciate it. It was a good conversation.
Thanks.
And again, like we talked about before, like I don't really get to sit in this seat too often, so it was nice to be able to just answer questions. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.